Spanish Empire. My personal favorite empire, the one that is nearest and dearest to my little heart, is one that I have researched quite a bit, both independently and at school, but I think my independent studies have been more informative than the stuff that I've learned at school, just because schools apparently don't want to spend a lot of time talking about Spain. I mean, that's ridiculous. But anyway, since I talk and learn so much about this particular country and its history and its culture and its people, I figured why not make a series of videos about it. So without further ado, this is Spanish history with Vina. That's me. I'm Vina. That's her right there. So today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite little bits of Spanish. By the way, if I get anything wrong, like any tidbits or anything wrong about Spain, any of my information is inaccurate, feel free to tell me. I mean, that would be kind of, I like learning, so if you want to let me know if I get something wrong, feel free to do so. So anyway, one of my favorite little pieces of Spanish history is what I'm about to talk about today. Keep in mind throughout this video that I'm not attempting to make fun of the Spanish people. I am a Spanish people, so that's not the goal, but this particular event, I guess you could call it, in Spanish history was not so bright. The Spanish people were not really thinking things through. So, this starts with, or I guess the back story to this, the lead up, is the collapse of the Spanish Empire. And there were a lot of things that contributed to this. Some people, many historians, say that it sort of began with the defeat of the Spanish Armada by the British. And that was a huge blow to Spain, because Spain was like, we have the best armada. It is strong, it is bad. England came along and they were like, flaming ships. And that sort of said, that caught the Spaniards off guard quite a bit. It sent them into sort of a downward spiral because that defeat was so unexpected. There were also storms and whatnot in it's not all England's fault that the Spanish Armada got defeated. The weather was like, fuck you, Spain. So, that happened. The other issue was the kings. The kings of the time were inbred. They weren't fit to run an empire. They were stupid a little bit. They were weak. And because of the idea that was still in Spain at this time about divine right, that kings had a God-given right to rule over their people. Even though the kings weren't fit to run a country at all, they ruled anyway. So that was an issue. One of the other issues was the Spanish economy, and that was suffering. One of the reasons why it was suffering, but this is not the reason I'm talking about today, but one of the reasons why it was suffering was because the Spaniards kind of chased isn't the right word, they violently forced the Muslims and the Jews out of their country. They were like, nope, get out. And that was not so smart, and I will take another video, maybe my next video or something, to talk about why that was not so smart on the part of the Spaniards. But they chased the Muslims and the Jews out of their country, and that was not a good idea, and that contributed to the downfall of the Spanish economy. But another big factor was the fact that at the time, the attitude that the Spanish aristocracy took towards working considered unfair. So I'm going to let that sink in for a moment before I say that the Spanish nobles refused to get jobs. The only job, the only occupation that was considered sophisticated and acceptable was a church occupation. So people became priests, they went into the clergy, you got a whole rush of Spaniards going into the church, and that was all well and fine, except that it didn't contribute to the Spanish economy at all. So it was basically the fate of the Spanish economy was heaped onto the backs of Spanish peasants, and you don't have to be an expert on anything to know that that's not a good idea. So that's what happened. And then the Spanish officials, instead of being like, why, oh, why won't you get a job, were more like, what's going on? They, I guess, didn't really realize the urgency of contributing to the economy in this way, because there was gold and whatnot coming in from the colonies, and I mean that was fine, but that was a finite resource. Something that's falling off. The gold and whatnot in the colonies, that was well and fine, but it was a finite resource. Unfortunately, because this idea of fixed wealth at the time, they didn't really understand that they could create wealth, and they could flood wealth into the economy by having jobs, doing job things, working and stuff. There was this idea of fixed wealth, and you had to get all the gold and bring all the gold into your country, and that was how you made a big, powerful country. They were so worried about people in the country. That's not an entirely different idea, but at the time, it just wasn't cool to have a job. So, moral of the story, no matter how awesome you are never too classy to get a fucking job. Don't do what the Spaniards did. And this has been Spanish History with Vina. Bye-bye.